and welcome to this session on social vulnerability, responsibility, and justice. This morning we've been talking about, what the civil rights change might be, what the climate changes might be, and we've been talking about modeling them and visualizing them. But now we're going to talk about, so what? Why do we care about these impacts? Particularly, how does it impact people in vulnerable communities? So this afternoon, we have 4 speakers. And we're going to start off with John Barros, who's the Chief of Economic Development for the City of Boston. And then it's going to be followed by 3 other speakers from Cambridge and Chelsea. So, John, do you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Paul. It's good to be here. So I'm the new Chief Economic Development for the city. Marty appointed me, and we have no clue what that means. So I get to make it up as I go. But one thing is for sure is he appointed me because of the work that I've been doing in Boston for the last 13 or so years. And so before deciding on some crazy day that I was going to run for mayor of Boston and being his competitor, I actually ran the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative. And for those who don't know the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative story, it starts with a neighborhood that really was trying to figure out some of the environmental issues that we had in our neighborhood and how to organize and solve for them, right? So a disproportionate number of brownfields, disproportionate number of empty lots with all types of things that got dumped on them, and our fair share of waste management firms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so in the mid-'80s, we organized and we did all types of amazing things to build a sustainable neighborhood. Before we really had an understanding of what that meant, we were trying to build a sustainable neighborhood and have, in fact, increased open space, decreased light industrial use in our neighborhood, cleaned up a lot of brownfields, and are working with some of the remaining light industrial uses to help them become more friendly to the environment, more friendly to the neighborhood, and I've been really fortunate to lead that work for 13 years. And now I'm at the city as Chief of Economic Development, bringing that same lens, bringing an environmental justice lens to the conversation citywide. And so as I think about economic justice, I think environmental justice, I think sustainable Boston. And we have an amazing team. So normally you would have the Chief of Environment, Energy, and Open Space, Brian Sweat, standing here. But I'm excited to take Brian's place and actually talk about it because it matters for economic development. So I'm glad to be here. I'm glad that it's not Brian and it's me. And I get to talk to you about a Boston. And this is a picture of Boston in the 1630s, a Boston that used to be, and a Boston that is today. And you could see how we've grown as a city, and a Boston that we are trying to plan for and deal with that we're hoping doesn't look like this in 2100. But we know the challenges that we're dealing with. And so as a city, people talk about preparing for Sandy. We're talking about preparing beyond Sandy. Sandy's already happened. And if you buy into climate change, it's going to get worse. Right? So this is not about preparing for the next Sandy. This is about preparing for what is to come that is actually probably scarier than Sandy. And in fact, trying to reverse the path that we're in so that we can not create a world that we can no longer prepare for and have a Boston that looks like this. We have storms throughout the city that have devastated and stopped progress in different areas, which is why we want to plan ahead. So the city is planning ahead. And it's about affordable housing, which is why we launched an affordable housing task force and how it relates to climate preparedness. It's about mobility visioning. climate action planning, and economic development in general. And these are planning processes that we've launched, and we are going to be coordinating around the city's goals. City in 2009, we launched the Renew Boston effort and had some pretty good goals. Reducing electricity demands by 200 megawatts through energy efficiency and alternative energy installations by 2017. 25 megawatts of solar power installations by 2015. 7% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by below the 1990 levels by 2012, and 80% reduction by 2050. Already we have 15,000 households. We've already reached 15,000 households, 7,000 plus businesses, 14,200 energy assessments, 3,900 weatherization jobs have been created. So we are on our way, but we've got to do more. And a big part of what we've got to do is around some of the larger commercial buildings and institutions in our neighborhood, in our city, which is why Mayor Walsh announced on May 31st, 2014, 4 large institutions that have joined the Mayor's Carbon Cup, each committing to at least 1 million square feet of building space, to a 35% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions intensity by 2020. These institutions collectively committed roughly 15 million square feet to the cup, and if successful, will remove 75,000 metric tons of GHGE from a 2005 baseline, equivalent to weatherization close to 60,000 housing units. So really, that's where a lot of the change needs to happen with our commercial and institutional partners. The CUP is actively seeking new commercial real estate, hospitals, and universities to commit throughout the year. And let me just tell you who's part of the CUP. Mass General, Brigham and Women, Harvard University, and Boston University. We have done a lot around bike share and are looking to do more. As you know, in July 2012, 132 stations, we launched it in July 2007, the Hubway bike share system. July 2011, Mayor Menino did an amazing job of playing a real leadership role. And for most people, the active visual of him riding a bike, throughout the city, right? You guys remember that? He actually rode a bike, right? And that's what I remember, right? And in fact, we've seen a tremendous increase of bike ridership. So to date, 19,725 annual members, 9,202 current annual members active, 167,000 casual members to date. There's been over 1.3, almost 1.4 million trips to date, an average of about 5,000 trips per day in the recent months, in the summer months, recent summer months. And so we'll see what we do in this summer. But this has been, from our standpoint, a real success, and we just want to continue to support it. Boston has increased bicycle ridership by nearly 82% since 2007. Now more than 2,000 new bicycle parking spaces across Boston's neighborhoods. Boston has worked with over 10,000 youth and engaged more than 30,000 cyclists directly through programs and events. Boston installed its 60th mile of new bike lanes. I think they were along the last mile was along Mass Ave, the spine of the city's bike network. And speaking about the bike network, we've laid out a plan for creating safer streets for bicycling that will attract and support new riders while improving the safety and comfort of all bicyclists, and identifies a comprehensive network of bicycle routes throughout the city, calling for 75 miles of new facilities in the next 5 years and reaching a network of about 350 plus miles within 30 years. This will be used by city departments, state agencies. You will see in the near future the Chief of Economic Development on his bicycle, riding through our bikes. And this plan is helpful because as we continue to grow as a city, and we're growing at a really rapid rate, we will have developers understand what we're trying to do and modify city streets as they build according to this plan. This plan, in 5 years, will increase by 75 miles, and in 30 years, move upwards to 353 miles to get you in and out of the city in a safe way. We've got some work to do. Boston's emissions per capita comparing to other cities, and you can see here, comparing to New York, London, Copenhagen. And we are going in the right direction, but look forward to continue to make the right decisions, because on the left, if we head in the right direction, we'll have a thriving, sustainable city. On the right, if we continue to head in the wrong direction, we will have a city that is, as you can see in some of these pictures, not ready for the current times and therefore not functional in certain times. So we have really a four-stage climate readiness plan, strategy. One is in planning. We're working with the Municipal Climate Preparedness Task Force, the Green Ribbon Commission Climate Preparedness Work Group, working on existing buildings, assess vulnerabilities of buildings and infrastructure through the BRA survey, better enforcement of flood-proofing building standards, and then new buildings, incorporating our preparedness guidelines in our Article 80 process, and then energy response. New emergency operation planning is really important for where we're going. We're also, in that last plan, doing a better job of engaging neighborhoods. Because to date, we have not done a good job of engaging neighborhoods, and we need to do a better job of that. So many people understand district energy planning, or we talk about it a lot, but we need to do more work. District energy can help keep the lights on when the grid goes down. District energy can help greatly enhance local job opportunities. I know the city is home to a district STEAM system, which serves 45 million square feet of building space within Central Business District of Boston, and it reduces carbon by 475,000 tons annually, which is the equivalent of removing 80,000 cars from the roads. And so this is an area that we have to spend more time focusing. We are collaborating with building developers, regulators, state energy department, utilities, and communities to get all hands on deck and work through some complex market barriers and risk perceptions for investors. We're conducting New England's first ever citywide energy study, which will identify clean and renewable energy districts and neighborhoods. This is the first step to identify investment-grade opportunities for reliable local power. The citywide energy study will tell us how many jobs we can create through energy investments, how much energy the city will demand in the future, and how much capital we can keep locally for energy services instead of buying electricity upstream. We already have a world-class example of district energy in Boston's healthcare sector. The Longwood Medical Area is home to a district energy system that serves 2.5 billion patients per year with cooling, heating, and power. This system brings reliable and cheap power to this major institutional core of our city. During times of grid outage, the lights have stayed on. District energy is prominent in medical and university campuses. We are working to transplant district energy into commercial and real estate so that our businesses and residents enjoy world-class energy reliability and affordability. We've heard from our constituents growing demand for greater grid reliability and resiliency, more sustainable energy sources to help compete for high-quality employers, factories, and tenants. 39% of Boston workers currently live in Boston. 58% of non-Boston residents drive alone to work versus 23% for residents. And 16.2 average daily miles are driven by Boston residents versus 48.8 miles for non-Boston residents. These are transportation drivers. We have 2020 projections of jobs growth of, you can see going from 682,000 to 750,000. This is in many ways 240, all of these, and I'm not gonna go through all these projections being conscious of time because I have so much information here. And we're gonna stop the conversation right here. But you could see that that these projections, and if I understand Brian's slide here correctly, that this is what we're planning for, which is still, or this is where we're heading towards, which is still 240,000 metric tons short of our 2020 goals. Which is why we need to do better, which is why in our climate action plan, we need to readjust our strategies so that we can actually hit our 2020 goals. Now I want to stop because actually I wanted to engage in Q&A, and I'm going to tell Brian he loaded me up with too many PowerPoint slides next time. Questions? Yes?
Do you know if there's a rezoning effort plan for the entire city of Boston based on master plan?
So the answer is yes. Boston is undertaking, so you know Brian Glascott, from, who used to be the head of ISD, is now the new assistant to the BRA director, Boston Redevelopment Authority director, specifically looking at zoning. He has a number of projects that he's doing now to look at our current zoning process, which is a little bit dysfunctional, and will be making recommendations to do a better job of streamlining and do a better job of when we rezone, the rezoning process, really understanding that. And then we are going to, and I love when the mayor says this, rezone the whole city, according to those planning processes that you saw up front. We're gonna launch a 15, 20-year look out for our economic development building process that will also help to inform the zoning, but it will be informed by the mobility plan, it'll be informed by the climate action plan, and it will be informed by the housing, affordable housing plan. Yes?
Let me ask a question which I hope is well within your field of expertise, which is jobs. Thank you. So a question within Mr. Barros's field of expertise, jobs. You're the Chief Economic Development Officer for the city. We're talking about resiliency here. Do you see a resiliency plan defending Boston in what may be a too little too late program is actually a fantastic economic opportunity for the city?
Yes, it's a fantastic economic opportunity for the city, not just an economic opportunity. I think we should celebrate sort of the efforts that we have and the jobs that we have created to date, and then try to drive that and steepen that curve of job creation. And I think the city has to become part of that market sector by creating demand. And so one of the things we're doing is trying to understand sort of city buildings and what we can do to help create demand and help incentivize new technology to meet the demands for energy efficiency around municipal buildings, to meet demand for other sort of car share use, and what are we doing, you know, our own sort of use of our own assets and how we can think about that differently. And so we want to do that and then join with the private sector and sort of helping to think this more. And so you see the Mayor's Cup is really trying to create more demand and more people saying, this is important to us, and the large property owners are going to come in and say, we are going to reduce X percentage by Y. And those all are job-creating opportunities. But it's also an opportunity for innovating, for improving the science, for getting out there and incentivizing people to create businesses that then can be used by others that are hopefully less expensive because we've kind of paid the ramp-up cost, the cost of entry. And so it's job creation is important, and then creating a sustainable industry that is growing is really critical, and we think the city plays an important part. Other questions?
More questions here?
Yes.
Hi, you mentioned ramping up the enforcement of the existing floodproofing standards or flood elevation standards. I wondered if you could talk to the linkage between basically the handcuffs the state building code puts on you being more innovative and forward-looking with respect to climate change, going beyond the minimum standards of the flood code.
So I think Boston, we could do a lot better. Right, we're handcuffed, but we could do a lot better. So the mayor removed the code enforcement unit out of IST and created a different unit that is more accountable, because we have not been doing as much as what we need to do. We still have some work to do on the policy front and working with the state, but we think that there is so much more that the city can do to be better in enforcement where we can enforce. So the mayor has really challenged us to make sure that we have the right operation to do that, and that's what we're focusing on. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.